What's good, guys? Welcome back to part two of our small talk on head-to-head fantasy basketball on reacting to ESPN's head-to-head points league average draft picks. Right, you're joined by me, Alan, and a good friend of mine, Anson. What's up, Anson?
It's good, guys. If you guys haven't checked out part one, go ahead and check that out. We reacted to it. A lot of players that we feel like are off. So a lot of good points there. If you can draft those players at wherever their average ADP is, I think you're in a pretty good spot.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. So, before we get started, I will do want to let you guys know, Anson and I did create a Discord for you guys that are interested in playing head-to-head fantasy basketball, right? So, I know some of you guys might not have enough friends to play. I'm not calling you guys, lonely, but I might some of you guys might not have enough friends that have the time to play fantasy, or you're just like, hey, I want to try playing fantasy. If it's fun, I'll get my friend to play. Yeah, join the Discord. We'll create a league for you guys. It'll probably be what, 10, 12 man league. I think that's the standard. I don't think we're gonna go over 12. I think 12-man league for sure. If there's enough, if there's less people, then you probably be a 10-man, which is cool too. But yeah, if you're interested in playing fantasy, you guys enjoy the Discord link and let us know. We'll put you in a league where you guys can play alongside each other, right? You guys will have basically you guys will be playing fantasy alongside us. But we won't, Anson and I won't be playing every single league, right? Because we're just no way we're running like 8 leagues and we have to manage all that league. But you guys will be playing alongside each other. We do have a few spots left on our league that Anson and I are playing on. Right? I think there's like what, 2, 3 spots left, Anson, right?
There's two.
Yeah, there's two. Yeah. But if you guys are interested in playing, you guys can just join the Discord. Let us know. We'll put you in a league. Anything else you want to add, Anson?
No, let's get started. So 50th, we left off at Desmond Bain last time. Now Scotty Barnes is getting drafted at 50.5, which I think is about fair just because there's so many good players that have done something already. Like we've seen concrete evidence that they've made up their value. However, Scotty Barnes looks really good in preseason. So without Fred VanVleet, he's going to be the main ball handler. I think Scotty Barnes is at a really good spot. I think you can take him earlier than 50, honestly. Then we have Giddy. Same thing with Giddy, where you're really drafting off potential. I think Josh Giddey is slightly early, but I think this is about the range. I would have Giddy maybe 55 to 60, but yeah, I think Giddy would be fine here if you're personally really high on Giddy. And then there's Paul George, who I get why he's getting drafted low, but per game, Paul George, obviously, he's a lot better than this. Paul George ranked 28th in average last year points per game. So if he's starting off the season healthy, if you can get him at 52, I think it's an absolute steal.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. Paul George is too low in my opinion. I think me personally, I had Paul George a lot higher. Right. I love what you said about Scotty and Josh Giddey. Right. You're seeing these guys as potential picks. Right. 50. I think Scotty's a steal here in my opinion. He is power forward. No Van Vliet, like Anson said. Right. So I think he's gonna have a good year. I don't want to base everything off of preseason, but I saw what he can do in preseason. Hopefully that carries over to the start of the season. Right. Josh Giddey, I like him just because he plays multiple positions: point guard, shooting guard, small forward, right? Alongside the PG too, small forward, shooting guard, power forward. That's like 4 spots or 5 spots you can just throw them in, and you'll never really be worried like, oh, can I fit them in? They're not just one position, like they're stuck with one position. So, obviously there are some injury concerns for PG, but overall, I think he's starting this year great. So after what we saw in the preseason, I don't think there should be much to worry about. If he stays healthy, yeah, like I said, 52 is a great steal.
Yeah, so the next player we have is Tyrese Maxey. I think Tyrese Maxey is slightly high, but it just really depends on what's going on with James Harden. I feel like there are still players that have proven to make up this 55 value, and Tyrese Maxey hasn't done that just yet. Last year he's 75. If you're saying, okay, if we disregard the games without Harden, you're that's fine, but you're really making the assumption that he can maintain that for an 82 game sample size. I think Tyrese Maxey here is fine. I have him slightly lower, but if news comes out that Harden for sure won't play, then I think Tyrese Maxey is pretty good here. But there's just too much uncertainty for him to get placed 54 as of right now. And then there's Evan Mobley and Kuzma. Well, with Evan Mobley, I'm actually very high on Evan Mobley. I don't agree with this 54 for Evan Mobley. On my personal list, I'm thinking about having Mobley low 30s, early 40s. I'm very high on Mobley. I think his third year is the year that he's really gonna make strides. He's really improved throughout the entirety of last year. Had a slow start, was still figuring himself out in the offense. He's getting a lot better on offense. His first year, he was kind of just taking advantage of mismatches. He's starting to kind of have a bag. Last year, averaged 36.8 fantasy, but um post trade deadline, which they didn't make a trade, but I'm talking about the end of last season. You see, he was averaging 41.2 in his 24 game sample size. I think if he keeps improving, keeps that progression, he could easily make up top 30 value as a ceiling, of course, but I'd project him around late 30s. And then Cal Kuzma, I know Alan and I have maybe a difference of opinion. I personally am not that high on Cal Kuzma. Last year on ESPN, default settings, he was ranked 106. I get that Kristaps Porzingis is out, but I don't think that jumps him up 50 fantasy spots. Jordan Poole also takes a lot of shots. Yes, if you say Kristaps is better than Poole straight up, I agree, but they take the same amount of shots. So unless Kyle Kuzma improves, um, he shouldn't be getting slid up that high. I don't think his scenario shifts him. It's more of, do you think Kyle Kuzma improve as a player? And 56 for him to improve at this stage of his career, I don't think his jump is going to be as high as they're projecting.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. Mobley for me, I don't know. We have difference of opinion, but Mobley for me wasn't too high. I think I had Mobley around like 45 to 50. So I think him here at 55, in my opinion, is okay, but obviously for you, it's a steal. Right. For Kyle Kuzma, I kind of like Kyle Kuzma just because I wanted to see what he could do without Beal and Kristaps now. Um, I think Poole is like the unanimous number one option there, right? I'm just not sure how Kuzma is going to play around it, but in my opinion, I think Kuzma could do a little better. I think overall his numbers are decent. I think if he's able to just get more of a playmaker and get more defensive stats like rebounds, assists, and maybe score like 15 to 22 points a game, like 15 to 20 points a game, I think that should give him around a good average to be here at 60. But like Anson said, he could just fall off because for me, I think Kuzma here is more of a player that you're banking on potential and maybe he can be good, right? Like you're looking at a position where, okay, there's no KP, there's no Beal. Let's see what he can do, right? If he does well, great, you have a good pick. If he doesn't, then you might have to drop him to grab somebody else, right? But yeah, that's all I really have to say about Kuzma.
All right. So our next three, Drew Holiday, could be kind of a surprise for some of you guys, but we see Drew Holiday as basically the fourth option on that team. Um, Drew Holiday, I know he was really good last year, averaged 40, 43 fantasy points per game last year, was a top 30 player. But I mean, there's Jason Tatum now, there's Brown, there's Chris Tops. There's only so many chefs that could be in the kitchen. So I think 60 is about fair um, for Drew Holiday. I think he can take a shot there if he remains in the offense. The steals and the assists will always be there. And then we have Alperen Şengün. I think Şengün is a bit too high. You would be drafting him mainly on upside. I don't really like him on fantasy, not around the 60 range. Last year he placed 80th in terms of total. He does play a lot of games, which does boost him up a little bit, but I think that Rockets team did get a little better than it did last year. They're replacing KPJ with Fred, and then Dylan Brooks takes a lot of shots. They've added in a lot of rookies that I feel like they're really gonna prioritize. Not over Şengün necessarily, but parts of Şengün's touches will be distributed to Amen Thompson, for example. Um, Cam Whitmore, for example. So there's just so much young talent that they've got to kind of juggle around. I don't think Şengün's touches is gonna improve. And then Spencer Dinwiddie is interesting. He averaged almost 40 fantasy points last year, a post trade deadline when he went to Brooklyn. So I think it's very interesting. I don't know if we skipped over his teammate Nick Claxton. Hopefully he's even in the top 100 because it seems like they forgot about him. But yeah, I think Spencer Dinwiddie is interesting at 65. I think he's worth a look at.
Yeah, I definitely agree with everything you said there. Drew Holiday, not too much you can do, right? There's Sengun that he's in a role where there's a lot of other shot takers there. Dinwiddie, he's playing alongside McCall, Nick Claxton, and even Ben Simmons, right? We see glimpses of Benson coming back, but I don't really buy into it yet, right? It's just if you really do want one of these guys, I would lean toward Dinwiddie a little bit more over the other two, just in my preference. But he is a shooting guard, point guard, which does help it out a little bit.
Yeah. Next, we have Chet, who is in running for Rookie of the Year. We've seen nothing really besides preseason games, summer league games from Chet. But based off what I've seen in preseason, summer league, the fact that there's no big man in OKC to challenge Chet's minutes, I feel pretty confident in drafting Chet, considering him around this 65 range. I think this is about the range you should consider him. I've seen other mock drafts where people take him 30, 40. I think once you get past 55, late 50s, 60s, that's when all the players that have done actual, they've proved their value before. And all of these players aren't proven to make top 60 value yet. So Chet should play 30 minutes. I think he's in a pretty good spot. Aiton is very interesting. I think you can start considering him around this range as well. I think 70 might be a little bit low. Maybe around 60ish should be good for Aiton. It's just Aiton, he just disappoints me every year, starting from his rookie year. He's just so talented, but he plays really soft. Maybe in Portland he can get more touches now that he's not playing alongside Devin Booker, playing around Chris Paul's system or playing with Kevin Durant. And then there's also Austin Reeves, who is so talented. He's such a good player. He's so efficient. He should put up minimum 16 points per game. It's just that there's so much on the Lakers team that it's kind of hard to get to Austin Reeves. But if at any point their two best players go down with injury, LeBron and AD, very injury prone players, Austin Reeves is gonna automatically shoot up to top 40 value.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. 8-10 and Chet. I mean, I think I would lean toward Chet a little bit more just because I like what he can do. And like you said, rookie of the year in running, in contention. All right. 8-10. Man, I'm on the same boat as you, homie. This guy's been disappointing. So I mean, I don't want to like be emotional about 8-10. I want to think of this logically. Like you said, he could have a great year. I think he's still a very solid player that can grow. He's very young, right? Maybe he can take what he learned from playing alongside, like CP3 and then move it into the Portland system. So we'll see. We'll see what he can do. AR-15, man. Love AR. Uh Great player. Shooting guard, small forward, eligibility, really, really good. It's just that there's a lot of players on the Lakers, right? There's obviously LeBron, AD, AR is the third option, I'm assuming, and then D'Lo, right? So I'm not sure if AR is able to really do well in fantasy unless one of them takes a break or one of them gets injured, right? Just because AD's gonna grab the rebounds, right? LeBron and D'Lo probably the playmakers. So Austin Reeves will have to rely, same thing, like kind of like similar like Jaylen Brown, he would have to rely most of his fantasy off of scoring, right? But obviously, you have two great scorers. You have LeBron and AD. So I think it's very, very tough for AR-15 to be drafted here, right? And I'm just taking a look at the players below him, right? We got Van Vliet here, 68, which is crazy. Van Vliet here is crazy. I think Van Vliet here is like borderline. You just won your league, right? But I know there's a lot of people saying, hey, but what's the system going to be like in Houston, right? Is Van Vliet going to be just as good as he was in Toronto? Think about it this way, okay? Houston, they don't really have a solidified number one option, right? In Toronto, they had Pascal's number one option, and you had maybe Van Vliet's second option. maybe OG or maybe Scotty Barnes was your second option, right? But now I feel like now Van Vliet is stepped into a bigger role, in my opinion. I think he should do a lot better or just as good as he did last year, right? He's a really good scorer, really good playmaker. So I think a lot of people are sleeping on Van Vliet here at 68, right? We have CJ and then Scoot. Okay, so let's talk about CJ real quick. So CJ, right? Same thing. We have Ingram there. We have Zion there, right? CJ does well. I guess more as a playmaker, and he's like a veteran player. I'm not looking for him to score too much, but same thing. If Zion gets injured or if Ingram gets injured, McCollum would be probably the person that gets the most gain out of it in fantasy, right? So him here, I think is solid. I don't think he's gonna average like over 40, but I think he'll be averaging around like 37, 36 mark. But like I said, if Zion or Ingram gets injured, he's easily averaging 40, 42, right? Moving on from CJ, we got Scoot, right? So Scoot here gets shot up because of the Damian Lillard trade, obviously, right? Scoot before, I remember he was like 100-ish. They weren't sure, right? But as soon as Dame got sent out, Scoot was like everyone was like, yo, Scoot is who I want. Scoot is the guy that I think can replace Dame and could be like a young superstar in the making. Right. So everyone's really, really hyped around Scoot. I like Scoot here. If you can get him here, it's great. Right. In my opinion, I think I'll grab Scoot over like Drew Holiday. I think he should be probably like top 50. I think like not top 50. 55 to like 50 to 55 is where I would grab Scoot. He is only one position. So if you guys do have a lot of point guards, then you guys shouldn't really grab Scoot.
Yeah, definitely agree with the Scoot take right there. I think he's honestly gonna have a better fantasy season than Paolo Banchero. I think he's more efficient. He gets more assists. He's in a position where he could put up the same amount of points as Paolo, 20 points per game. Paolo was the 85th, but I think with Scoot's assist ability, his Paolo was very inefficient. As much as I love Paolo, he was really inefficient. Scoot is a much more efficient player, mostly drives. So I think Scoot can make around top 60, 50, even 50, depending on how his season goes. Obviously, he's a rookie. We haven't seen him in action, but it looks pretty good so far. With CJ, I think CJ is I mean, at 68, you could take a shot at him. I'm just not very excited about CJ. He ranked 51 last year, and that was without Zion being healthy for majority of the season. Zion only played like 20, 30 games last year. CJ, he's only getting older. He is a good player, but Ingram is getting better. I feel like he's just gonna fall off a little bit more. And if he falls off anymore, there's just not a lot of upside. I think if you're picking around 68, I kind of value more upside than I do solidified players already. Because you just want to take a shot at someone at 60, you might get a top 30 player if you pick some of these younger players. And Fred Van Vliet, like you said, is ranked way too low. I the only concern with Fred Van Vliet is that maybe he doesn't get as much minutes as he did in Toronto because maybe they want to focus on Jaylen Green more. I know Nick Nurse loves running his players down to the ground. Fred Van Vliet, I believe he was top 5 or 6 in minutes per game. His teammate Siakam was number 1. So in Houston, he might not be averaging his insane 36 or 37, whatever minutes per game he was averaging last year. But he's like Alan said, he's not sharing the ball with Pascal Siakam, with OG. The level of players in Houston do not really match the level of players that were in Toronto. So he's gonna have a lot more opportunity just to do more in general in terms of assisting, playmaking, shooting the ball. Last year in Toronto, in a more stacked team, he was able to be the 27th best player in terms of averages. And if you're saying, okay, he's getting old, well, he still played 69 games last year. He's very durable, and playing 69 games last year, he was able to be the 23rd best player. So if you get him at 40 spots below what he did last year, assuming that he's in arguably a better position than he was last year, I think that's a steal. Like I would take him around 40.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. Van Vliet is way, way too low. But let's move on from these three. We got John Moran here at 70. Okay, so obviously we know the situation of John Morant. If you guys don't know, he's suspended for 25 games. So his first game will probably be in mid-December, I think mid or late December, I forgot. But his first game will be in December. So you're going to be missing about 2 months, 2 to 3 months, like 2 months and a half of a player that could be very, very good, right? He is not injured, so that's a good sign. So if he comes back healthy, you could have a really good pick. Um, the issue is like, where do you draft him, right? Are you able to really tank the first 2.5 months? That's like what, almost 10 weeks. So if you lose 0 and 10, it's very, very hard to try to win 10 weeks in a row. Like let's just say John Morant wins you like 6 weeks in a row, but then to say something happens, John Morant gets injured, right? Then you're basically out of John Morant already again, right? And you might lose again. You might not even make playoffs. So it's a big gamble, right? So you have to really be careful, like where you're drafting John Morant, right? You could get him here. Maybe if someone wants to grab him earlier, you just let him grab him earlier, and other picks will fall to you, right? And then we have Walker Kessler here. Walker Kessler 71 is interesting to me just because I think there should be a lot other players above him, right? He is playing alongside Poole and Kuzma, right? And he will probably be the main playmaker, but I don't know how it's gonna work well in fantasy, right? He's not really the guy that's known to, be taking shots, right? He literally runs at the ball, usually tries to set the screen, gives the ball to another player, allows them to try to get a bucket. But overall, I feel like he's still an underrated scorer. I think he can still score if he really wanted to. And let's just say if Kuzma or Poole get injured, I think Tyus Jones has the most to gain from it.
Yeah, definitely agree. With Tyus Jones, I think at 71, you could take a shot. We've seen what he does as a starter. He could put up 15 and 7, super efficient. So I think at 70, take a shot. Just don't um don't value him too high. Walker Kessler, I really like at 70. It's just the only thing that's really bothering me is that I haven't seen Nicholas Claxton yet, and Nick Claxton is a much better option. I really hope I see him in the top 100, but yeah. And then with John Morant, I mean, Alan kind of covered it. If you want to know more, we dropped the entire video on John Morant. Obviously, we don't agree with where he's getting drafted, so yeah. So the next three players we have Miles Turner. Miles Turner, I think, is kind of underrated. He was pretty good last year. I know he did set career highs in points. He had a huge jump. Maybe you think it's a fluke year, but he averaged 38.2 fantasy. He was a top 50 player. The Pacers team didn't really change. I know he had a relatively healthy year. You can't really count on 1 year sample size. The years before, he missed almost half of the season. So, but Miles Turner, I think if you get him this late, I think he could. I think it's a worth pick. I think when I talk about players that you want to kind of take a shot on that are hit or miss, these are the players I'm talking about where there are a lot of concerns about them, but they've shown that if things go right, they can easily make top 50 value. So yeah, 74. I really like Miles Turner. Jaylen Williams is it's kind of a shocker to me. I think there's much better players. I know he's decent, but you're adding Chet into the roster. He's gonna play, he's gonna get some minutes. Um, I think it's gonna take away, it's not gonna take away from Shea's minutes, not gonna take away from Giddey minutes, it's gonna take away from these role players. So Jaylen Williams, I get that he's young, had a really good rookie season, but I just don't think last year he was ranked 90th in average. I don't think you should jump up 20 if Chet's going to be on the roster. And then we have Franz Wagner. Franz, I think there's some upside in Franz. I do like Franz over some of these older guys that are around him just because he's a younger player. He ranked 88th, so you're kind of banking on the fact that he's gonna jump up. He's gonna make up that 13 draft position that he's getting drafted at. The Orlando Magic roster hasn't really changed. If anything, it's just the point guards getting healthier. I think Markel Fultz will be playing that point guard position, but I don't think it really affects Franz Wagner too much.
Yeah, I agree with what you said about these guys. I only really like Miles Turner here. I think he's underrated, like you said. Moving on from Franz, we got Jarrett Allen here. Ah, man, Jarrett Allen, I think he's good. Okay, I think he's a consistent player. I just don't think he's gonna be better. Okay, and I mean, if you just look at his numbers from last year, he's okay. He's good, but you're looking at this from now because like Mobley's gonna get better, Garland's gonna get better, Mitchell's probably gonna stay the same, and I think all the other two, Garland and Mobley, are going to get better. They take stuff away from Allen, right? Mobley's probably going to be do more on the offensive and defensive end, right? Darius Garland's going to probably feed it more towards Mobley or probably play make for Mitchell. So I think it's very hard for Jarrett Allen to be this high, and especially there's so many other players down there. I'm just looking over it that should be above Jarrett Allen and some of these other players that we just talked about, right? But moving from Jarrett Allen, we got Russell Westbrook. So in my opinion, Russell Westbrook here is solid. I think he's very, very solid. The ideas behind it is that Kawhi already said he's going to sit back to backs, right? He doesn't care what the league says about it. So when when Kawhi sits those back to back, I think Russ and PG, or even if PG sits, I think Russ is going to take most of the bulk of that, and he's going to do extremely well, right? We saw what he could do when he's by himself on the court, triple double machine easily, right? So even grabbing him with that potential upside and the fact that now he's a starter, right? Because last year he was playing off the bench. He was playing off the bench for the Clippers for a little bit. And until near the end of the playoffs, like near the end of the postseason, or near the end of the normal season, entering the postseason, that's when they really gave Russ the ability. Okay, here, Russ, take the ropes, try to get as far as you can, because PG was out and it was just Russ and Kawhi. And I remember Russ and Kawhi was just really trying to dominate. They took 2 games off from the Suns, but overall, the Suns were just too strong that they couldn't win. But it showed me that, okay, Ty Lue is now trusting Russ, and I'm looking for that to continue on into the regular season this year. Right, Russ is going to be a starter this year, so which is really, really good. I like Russ a lot. So overall, I think getting him at 80 is really, really solid. If you can grab him a little bit earlier, you could. Right. Going to Jalen Green now. Okay, so Jalen Green's also interesting just because everyone was expecting a lot from Jalen Green. I would say I think a lot of the media was expecting Jalen Green to be really, really good. He's very athletic, right? He can shoot, but then we started seeing that he was struggling with efficiency, right? And now Van Vliet is there now, so obviously there's no more KPJ, but I think Van Vliet's better than KPJ, so it takes stuff away from Jalen Green, and they just drafted like another guard too. So it's very, very difficult for Jalen Green to get more looks, but I do think that the Houston system wants to keep Jalen Green happy, and they would want to have him try to be the number one option. I think he has to prove himself. So him here at 80 is more like a potential pick as well. Like, okay, if he does really well, you can grab him. But in my opinion, I think there could be some other players here that you could grab.
Yeah, agree. With Jalen Green, it's really upside. I feel like we kind of seen glimpses of Jalen Green being that guy. That he's making his worth as the number top 3 pick. It's just he needs to make tweaks in his game. Maybe Fred VanVleet can really get him there, has that better impact. But Jalen Green last year 95, if he makes tweaks in his game and he becomes more efficient and you just carry those numbers out, he could be top 60. So you with Jalen Green, it's just more of how he's doing, how he's improving. I love what you said about Russell Westbrook. I think it's a very interesting pick. I think it's a pretty good um, roll of the dice at 79. And with Jared Allen, there's just not a lot of upside. But if you're getting him this late, I guess you could do it. It's just like I said, I'm not a fan of safe picks this late. So I would rather just take a shot at guys like Jalen Green or Russell Westbrook who could give you top 50 upside. With Jared Allen, I think his ceiling is maybe 65 just because there just isn't a lot of room for him to do much, especially with Mobley getting implemented to the offense more. Next, we have Tyler Herro. Tyler Herro coming off a hand injury. There's clips of him shooting. I think he's ready to go again. If Tyler Herro is healthy, I think he's a steal at 90. Last year he was ranked 65, and he's been progressing every year. So Miami lost two of their main perimeter shooters. They're gonna need a lot of shooting, especially Bam and Butler kind of clogs up the paint, so they're gonna need someone to shoot the ball. Duncan Robinson will probably get more minutes, but someone has to replace the production of Gabe Vincent, Max Strus. So Tyler Hero is going to be their main perimeter shooter. I really like Hero if you can get him this late. Chris Middleton, I'm not a fan of safe picks, but if you're taking Chris Middleton at 80.7, he's shown that he could put up 38, 39 fantasy point when he's healthy. So I like Chris Middleton here. And same thing with Bradley Beal, where the upside is kind of capped off just because he's on the Phoenix Suns. But at 80.7, I'm sure he can average 40 fantasy points on that team. Last year he averaged 42 almost. So I think if you're getting him this late, the worst I could see him doing is 36, 37.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. I really like Tyler Hero here. I agree with you. I don't think Middleton should be a safe pick, but if you get him at 80-ish, I think that's very, very solid for Middleton, right? Beal, same thing. You get him at 82, great steal pick, right? I think these three here should be a lot higher, right? But people have their own preferences. This is the ADP of what people draft them at. So I guess if you get him here, you got a great steal, right? Moving on from Beal, right, we got D'Angelo Russell. I like Russell, but similar to the AR-15 situation where there's really two other guys there that are gonna probably score 30 points. LeBron probably scoring 28, 29, maybe he 28 points, fine. AD probably 29, 30 points per game, right? AR is going to get his shots in. So it's very, very tough. I think D'Lo is kind of like the opposite AR. He'll probably earn most of his fantasy points from, steals, assists, maybe a little points here and there. But I mean, getting him here is not bad at all because, like I said, AD is injury prone. LeBron is getting older. So if it does fall down to D'Lo and AR-15 just running the whole offense, I think D'Lo can easily give you 40 points, 40 fantasy points a night, easily, maybe more than that. Right. And then next we have Nick Claxton. Okay. Nick Claxton here is very, very low. I think if people are sleeping this low on Nick Claxton, you can easily win your leagues if you grab Nick Claxton here at around this area. If you want to grab him like around 80, super, super good. I don't think he should even be like 70. I think he could easily be like 70, like top 70. Easily, you can grab him there. But if people are sleeping on him and Nick Claxton, then you can easily get him, and that's easily a 37, 40 fantasy points per game, right? So I really like Claxton here. Like, he shouldn't be here, but if he's here, I really love the pick here, right? And then we have Klay Thompson. Okay, so Klay Thompson here is interesting, right? I guess if you're picking him here, it's for like the positioning, shooting guard, small forward. Overall, I'm just looking at, I think there should be some other people that you can grab over Klay, right? But if you're really high on Klay, it's I don't recommend you getting him too early, right? There's CP3 there, right? There's obviously Curry there, and then there's Wiggins and Klay. So there's just enough there. There's enough players to go around, and Klay Thompson or Wiggins, it's really a toss up. It depends on who's having a good night. But overall, I think it's very I think you could grab Klay here, but I think it's a very safer pick. I guess you grab Klay here.
Yeah, I don't really have much to say about D'Lo and Klay. You said everything, but just to add on, is there something we're missing with Nick Claxton? If you guys know why people just don't like Nick Claxton, let me know, because I get it. Sometimes players get moved to a team, like Bradley Beal got moved to Phoenix. Okay, we're gonna drop his fantasy rank by a good amount, right? Who did someone enter Brooklyn? Did Nick Claxton get traded to a team I don't know about? Like, they didn't grab a random center, right? Because Nick Claxton last year, he was the 45th fantasy player. Last year he averaged 38.5. He ranked 45, guys. So he should be valued around 45. Nothing has changed offensively. Nothing has changed for him. He gets most of his fantasy points on blocks and rebounds anyways. So I mean, unless there's just something I don't know about, that did he get hurt in the offseason? I have no idea, but just for reference, Nick Claxton had a better fantasy per game average than like Desmond Bain, Zach LaVine, Miles Turner, Mobley, CJ, a lot of these players. So I just don't understand why Nick Claxton is so low. If you can get Nick Claxton, honestly, I wouldn't even wait till this low. If people are just leaving Claxton on the board, like Alan said, if you're picking at 60-ish and he's there, just know last year he was top 45.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I guess we're gonna stop here. We did go a little bit slower because we did have a lot more to talk about, right? But we'll stop the video here at Nick Claxton and Clay. All right, we'll continue with Andrew Wiggins on our next video. But is there anything else you want to add for them, Anson?
Just pick, pick up Nick Claxton at 60.
Yeah, I don't think you'll regret it. Like Nick Claxton shouldn't be at 85, man. I think if everyone's sleeping on him, you could try to get away with him getting at 70. And at 70 is even a bigger steal, man. If you somehow get Nick Claxton at 80, 85, like, man, you just almost just won your league. You basically got a top 50 player at 85, which is crazy, which is unheard of, right? But yeah, overall, I think that should wrap up this video, right? I hope you guys enjoyed, right? And like I said already in the beginning, if you're interested in joining fantasy basketball and you guys want to play with some other people, just join our Discord. We'll put you in a league where we'll create it, we'll manage it, right? We'll make sure everything goes smoothly, right? But yeah, I think that should wrap up this video. Is there anything else you want to add, Anson?
Pick up Nick Claxton.
Okay, well, you heard it here first, folks. We caught it. Nick Claxton should not be down here, but I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. Hope you guys have a great fantasy season, and we'll see you guys on the next video. Peace.
Peace.